the heart of the Sunshine City, Harare. And this week I have with you three artists, as always, and I'm unpacking with a mixed media artist, a podcaster, and a stylist, because we've got to stay fashionable. Welcome to this week's episode of iAfrica. Stay tuned. iAfrica searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdokwani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. iAfrica, celebrating the African story. Welcome to the very first segment of this week's episode of iAfrica, where I'm joined by a mixed media artist who hails from the town of Chitungwiza, Admaya Kamzingere. Let's get into it. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so Admaya, tell me about your art. What got you into art?
I think I started making art when I was in high school. I was doing A-level and then I just walked into a classroom where there were students doing art. And from there I fell in love with art. I studied at, Gallery Delta. From there I went under Atelier Gallery Delta, which used to be taught by Helen Lee Ross, under the gallery that was run with her and her husband, Derek Huggins. So from there, I think I spent like more than 5 or 6 years learning there. And then after that, I came to the National Gallery School of Visual Arts and had to even study a bit more for 3 years. And from there, that's where the whole journey of studio practice started.
I know that you traveled and you went outside of the country. You went outside of the country to broaden your horizons. Can we talk about the importance of broadening your horizons on an international scale? And also let's talk about that international journey.
This happened, I think, in around 2012. I applied for this residency program, which I saw online. In Amsterdam, and so I was accepted to be there for like 2 years. So I went there, and for 2 years I had my own studio and my own house accommodation, and also I was under the guidance of technical practitioners and theoreticians who would come to the studio and talk about my work. And also I had the opportunity to learn about many things, create many things. So that's how the journey sort of like started. And basically it was the idea of me wanting to sort of like learn more about art and also meet new people and new experiences and also see different places and work. So I really wanted to actually broaden my horizons and engage in many discourses.
What story does your art tell?
I used to actually play chess a lot through a friend. So what I wanted to do was to see how I can probably like translate like the abstract concepts through chess into concrete visual elements. So what I found was that like art and chess are more like related. Especially to the social and economic and political fundamentals. So my work was kind of like trying to mirror situations and basically just sort of like put it in front of people and see people sort of like seeing themselves the way they want, but also in a way offer maybe like alternatives or possibilities or whatever, that could trigger any sort of like positive response.
Admaya, I understand that you're part of a number of art collectives. Let's talk about the Cheuka Harare Art Fair. What's that about?
Cheuka Harare Art Fair is a fair where we have like a number of collectives that have been working together in Zimbabwe. So we invited like this artist collective to come together and be in one space and showcase what they've been doing, and maybe get to also like know each other and talk to each other and see what might come out of that, whether be it dialogues or collaborations or solutions or however that can help the artist visual sector to become sustainable and to grow. So that's what Chioka Harare Art Fair is.
What can we look forward to when we come to the art fair?
I think it will be a huge sort of like culture sort of like crash, like yeah, like a mixed bag of different kinds of like practitioners and different artists. We've been working in Zimbabwe in different kind of medias, and what's more exciting is that there are many artists who have been working in Zimbabwe, and some of them I mean, you rarely sort of like see them in exhibitions because they are mostly like maybe how do you call it, like linked or working with galleries or institutions abroad. So this is a chance where you can actually go and explore and see what's been happening in the visual sector and see what the artists are doing and learn from the creative sector or contribute something to the heritage of the Zimbabwean art.
So basically, when we're looking at that, we're looking at the importance of art collectives in the country, right?
Yes, the importance of art collectives and also the importance of art in itself. I mean, one of our hope is that like maybe this can actually bring art to the attention of many people in terms of like what is the importance of actually like supporting the art and what is the importance of also like living with art in the households. And our also targeted audience is actually we're actually hoping that maybe we can have more like young age that can come in and maybe pick it up from a very early age. Yeah.
Oh yes, that's a beautiful concept right there. As we're looking at the collectives as well, what are some of the challenges that you've been facing in some of your collectives?
The major challenges that exist, especially in terms of art, is usually mostly I would say like one, it's support. Well, support is actually there, not one, but it's the whole thing in terms of support. Oh, it's support in terms of like financially. It's also support in terms of like institutions and systems that that exist in terms of like showcasing what the artists are doing. Yeah, and maybe also like if we look also in terms of like the education, also in terms of the visual sector, there are very sort of like few education spaces that exist where artists can go and learn, or where even students actually in school can actually go and learn about art from serious practitioners who have been doing this for a living. And then if we also look also on the investment side, I mean like in terms of that, it's also something that also needs to also like be ingrained also to, especially in our Zimbabwean community, because we have a lot of artists that make art here, but most of the collectors are usually very few collectors in Zimbabwe, but the majority of collectors are usually abroad. And if you look in terms of like Africa has been talking in terms of like repatriation, especially of the works and heritage that were actually looted during colonial era, and to actually speak about that without also like encouraging our fellow own Zimbabwean people to be collecting and saving this for the future generation as part of the heritage would be a very sort of like important thing. So I would actually think that in terms of education, a lot of gaps needs to actually be bridged so that we can have a dynamic culture that is sustainable, that is also like kind of like an ecosystem that keeps this whole thing sort of like revolving.
Right. I need your parting shots, Admire, for the child who's out there, who's watching you right now, who says, listen, I'm an artist and I want to pursue art, or a parent who's nurturing a child who's an artist. What are your parting words for them?
I would say if it's a child that actually practicing what I always say is that give them paints, give them crayons, give them material, just let them be, because in art, this is where a lot of sort of like complications are sort of like simplified, and this is where a lot of the creative mind from a very age starts sort of like learning in terms of like how to sort of like solve problems, or how to create alternatives, or how to improvise. So it's a very sort of like fragile, but it's also a very exciting age, because this is where also the skill is sort of like inhabited. So in a way, it's something that I always say, like, keep encouraging them and keep sort of like pushing them, and also bring them to the fair.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Admire.
Thank you so much.
That was our very first interview with Admire Kamzegere, who is a mixed media artist. Stay tuned. We've got more for you. Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdokwani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. iAfrica, celebrating the African story. iAfrica searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdokwani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. iAfrica, celebrating the African story. Welcome to the second segment of iAfrica, where I'm joined by a podcaster who's taken a different route to the podcasting journey. She's got a podcast that tells real-life stories that inspire through iconic songs. Yes, that's right. The songs will have you singing along as you hear her story. Welcome to the show, Priscilla Kamwenda. Hi, Priscilla.
Hi, Rugare. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And you?
Such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Likewise. Priscilla, now tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Okay, so it's called Rhyme and Reason with Pris. And the idea came from my long-time relationship with music. I love music. I love all types of music, and I thought maybe we could have something that discusses the life lessons that we can draw from music. Yeah. Because I think everyone has that soundtrack to their life. Yes. I'm pretty sure everyone has that. I have a song for everything. My sons always make fun of me about that. I have a song that suits every single situation. So with my love for music, I decided to turn that into a conversation and have conversations that are relevant to what's going on around us. So that's basically where the inspiration came from.
Can you tell us the evolution of your podcast since its inception?
It is relatively new, but I feel like I've been doing this forever. My very first episode, and I want to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite producers, Magdi Chidawayenzi. Like he's such a gem. So I approached him and I told him about the idea that I had, and I just didn't know how to bring it to life. So he encouraged me. He actually volunteered to be the first guest, which was so amazing because my comfort level with him was, I didn't feel too nervous, you know. So he talked me through it, and he actually, there's McD and TEDx, and Paddy. They all work for Eternity Studios. Shout out Eternity Studios, my home. I love them. So they all came together to help me make this work. So I, from then on, it was onwards and upwards. I became more confident in approaching people to come and share their stories, their favorite songs. Yeah, so that's how that went about.
I love that you spoke about building the confidence, because I think when people are starting podcasts, when someone is sitting in their house and they're saying, I want to start a podcast, they think they can just start and there are no hurdles there. Can we talk about the hurdles to starting a podcast? Because we are in the podcast generation.
I think we are, and everyone has a story to tell. So I think we need even more podcasters, because anyone who can start a conversation that we need to have, I'm all for it. So some of the challenges, basically it's as simple as, where do I start? What do I get? What equipment do I need? So all of those things were taken care of by the production sponsor Eternity, like I said. So they offered to sponsor my my podcast, but I would have had to think about the equipment, logistics as well. If you notice, I started as an audio only. It's an audio only this season. In the second season, I will be introducing all video. So I'm working my way up, building that confidence, like we said, putting a face to it. I am quite camera shy, so that's something I'm working on. So don't let this fool you. But anyway, yeah, so you need the equipment. You need to learn from other podcasters who have been doing this for a while. There are some groups, even on social media. I'm in at least 5 Facebook podcast communities, and there's such invaluable information you can learn from there. And then there's also, the confidence, right? You need to bring your confidence and get out of your comfort zone and be heard. So yeah, it's that way. One of the things, by the way, when I started thinking and toying with the idea of a podcast, I took a class. I took a class. That's huge. I took a class that helped me in how to tell a story so that people will listen, and how to not lose your essence in whatever you try to put out there. So I shout out to Radio Academy Africa. Their lead trainer, Tony Friday, was very instrumental in training me. We had guest lecturers, like people like Tish Mataz, the legendary Tish Mataz, Hosia Singende. They came in, Mark Pozo. So we got to learn like little bits of, from their experiences. We got to learn some things there. So that helped a lot.
Now let's speak to, there's the youth that's out there, right? That's saying, listen, I've heard Priscilla, and I definitely have a voice and I have a lot to say. But my parents are saying, where's the money? Let's talk about monetization, because that's definitely important.
Yes, there are some platforms that allow you, even here in Zimbabwe, you can still monetize, and you don't have so many limits. So I think seeking advice from some podcasters who are doing it big is essential. So we can seek advice from them. We can research every platform. There are a lot of podcast distributors like Buzzsprout. I use Buzzsprout. And what it does is, when you upload your podcasts, it distributes it to different channels like Spotify, and everything is so centralized. So you can see how you're doing, and then you can see where you need to put more of your resources and your effort, right? So monetization is big. At the end of the day, that's something, if you're going to spend time doing something, it does have to, you have to make up for that in what you get, right? But first and foremost, your message.
That's the important
your message, yes, your message. What is your message? And then if that if you know how they say your gift will make room for you. As you authentically present your information and your content, as you authentically do that, it will come to pass to where it will sustain you. Yeah.
Speaking
I'm not
of,
quite there yet, but I'm getting there. At some
no,
point.
but your gift is making room for you. I know you recently interviewed someone, an icon. Let's talk
Wow.
about that.
I am still like beaming about that because a few days ago I managed to do my first video interview, and I managed to have a conversation with a legendary disco artist. She's basically disco royalty. I called her that, and she was like, "Oh, her name is Claudia Barry. She's from Toronto, but she's Jamaican. Toronto. She's Jamaican Canadian. So we had quite a lengthy conversation talking about her inspiration in music, how she had an early start. She was huge in the 70s on the disco scene, along with Donna Summers and all the big names. And she's like a multi-award winner, a multi-award nominee at the Junos, and she's had hits on the Billboard Hot 100s, some of them topping. So it's going to be an amazing. She had so much wisdom to share. So look out for that episode. I'm excited to see what you think.
That was our second segment with podcaster Priscilla Kamwendo. Stay tuned. We're going to be heading on over to a stylist because, yes, you've got to know how to put those fashion pieces together. This is iAfrica. Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdokwani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. iAfrica, celebrating the African story. iAfrica searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdokwani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. iAfrica, celebrating the African story. 2025 is the year that you need to do better with your fashion choices, which is why right here on the third segment, we're bringing you a stylist to put together those fashion pieces. Joining us in the third and final episode of this week's episode of iAfrica is Mr. Rocker. Hello, Mr.
Hello. Oh my God, I was just listening to you like, is that me?
Yes, that's you. I mean,
Yeah.
look at you as you're seated right here. I'm looking at the watch, the shirt, the tie, the stockings. What do I even call? Are they stockings or socks? Let me get it correct.
They're over-the-cuff socks.
They're over the cuff
Yeah,
socks.
they get up to here.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
See, this is one of the things I love about this program is the fact that I learn something new every day.
Great.
Now, for those that don't know you,
Yeah.
who is Mr. Rocker London?
So my name is Craig, affectionately known as Mr. Rocker. I'm the creative director and the founder of Mr. Rocker London. We are a bespoke tailoring house. We specialize in, we sell confidence.
Yes.
We help men and women, discerning gentlemen and ladies, to express themselves authentically and be the best version of themselves through dressing. So what we do is we do styling, we do personal shopping, and then we also do the bespoke tailoring of their suits and shirts.
Can you break it down for the layman who's never heard of the term bespoke? What exactly is bespoke?
Okay, so usually when you go into a shop, right, when you want to buy a suit, it's most likely that you're going to get an already made suit.
Yes.
So what you just do is you tell them that, okay, I'm a size, I don't know, size 40 jacket and size 34 trousers. And then you can just go into whatever, into their warehouse, into the shop, and then they just pick the size 40 and 34 and then they give it to you. But now what we do is, because those suits are made for a perfect body, which is a mannequin, most of us men in general, we don't have perfect bodies, right? We have bigger bellies, bigger necks, and long arms if you're like 6 foot tall. So those type of men, they struggle getting the perfect suit that can suit them so well. So now we came up with this idea of creating what's called a bespoke suit. So what that means is you come to us and then we take the measurements of your body.
Yes.
We take about 25 measurements. So we measure almost every part of your body. And then we create a pattern for you for the suit. Then we make the suit after.
Yeah.
So during that process, we have to bring back the suit, you try it on, we adjust it, take it back. So it's an extensive process that can take a few weeks until we come up with a perfect suit for you.
I feel, especially for me, like I've got long arms.
Yeah.
So if I just walk into a store and I ask for a blazer, sometimes I have to go for a bigger size in order for me, and then I get it tailored. So perfect.
Yes, it's a lot.
For people like me, I can just come straight to you.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned that it's an extensive process which takes a number of weeks.
Yeah.
Now, do you have like a number of tailors, or for you're just the creative behind it?
Yeah. So we got a team of tailors, Italian tailors, even though we're based in the UK. So all these suits are made in the UK.
Yes.
I only come here every other month just to service my clients. We do hand delivery. So that's why I'm more often in the country, and then take orders, go back, make them, and then come back again. So that's how we work. It's usually by appointments only. Even though now we have a shop at the airport, we sell our accessories like your ties, your scarves, socks, and all the other accessories that gentlemen and ladies can get. But the actual suits are obviously made in the UK.
I've noticed that not only are you based in the UK, you also service the South African market.
Yeah.
Looking at your expansion, where else do you see yourself going, and how has that been, like the uptake? Let's start from the uptake and where you're seeing yourself maybe in the next 3-5 years.
Okay, so we are an international brand as is, right? It's only that the majority of our clients, I think about 65% of our clients are in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Some are in England, some are in Australia, South Africa, and the United States and Canada. So what we do is, because we're based in London, so we can distribute world over. Yes. But when it comes to shops themselves, we're going to have a lounge in South Africa, a lounge in Zimbabwe, a lounge in Dubai, so that at least it's easy access to all the other countries that we're going to do. That's in the next 5 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the tailors are Italian. Where do you source your fabrics? Because looking at these fabrics and just feeling them, this is fine fabric right there.
Yeah, so this is an Italian mill,
okay,
or an Italian fabric supplier. So you can see how fine and soft they are, and they're all season as well.
Okay.
So usually when it comes to fabrics, it depends on the season, right? So, and the weight of the fabric. So if you look at this is like a 275 gram fabric.
Yes.
Yeah, it's written here, 275 grams. So it means it's an all season fabric. which is more compatible for the Zimbabwean market because it's usually warm here, it's usually hot. So if you have this fabric, you can wear it throughout the year. And then we've got the English mills or the English fabric suppliers, which have more heavier fabric because it's more colder in England. So the fabric will be like maybe 350 to 400 grams, slightly heavier, and it's good for that market. So everywhere we go, it all depends on the weather and the lifestyle of the client, then we can recommend the right fabric for you. So if you look at this one, it's also another mill. This is an English mill, and it has also different type of fabrics.
Now, let's say I'm a client that has just walked into your studios. Take me through the process. What kind of questions would you ask me? How would you determine what kind of suit is best suited to me?
Yeah. So first of all, we don't take in walk-ins.
Yes.
It's appointments only. So, but obviously, so we have a shop at the airport. So if you were to walk into the shop at the airport, we have to arrange an appointment because we want you to feel the experience of bespoke tailoring.
Okay.
So once that is done, we do a later date. When you come to us or we come to you, to your office or to your house, we have to qualify you. We have to understand your need because the whole idea is to solve a problem.
Yes.
So we need to know if we are the perfect fit because otherwise you might as well just go into the shop and just buy it. So we then get the appointment or the consultation. We get to understand you. We get to understand the challenges that you've been facing with your current tailor or your current shops that you've been buying. And then once we see that there's an alignment and you qualify to get our services, then we can take it from there. So the next stage is for you to go through the fabric and find something that you like. It's also very important for us to understand your lifestyle.
Oh, okay.
Do you wear suits every day? Do you do a 9 to 5? Are you a corporate person? Is this for a wedding? Is it for just a special occasion? We need to understand all that so that we can also recommend the first fabric that you need to be touching. So after that is done, then we take your measurements. We do, again, like what I said earlier, we take about 25 measurements to just make sure that we capture the right measurements and your body type and everything is considered. After that's done, then we go into the creative process of the suit. As you might know, suits, they come in different styles. So we've got the single breast, you've got the double breast, you've got the notch lapel, you got the peak lapels. So all that we need to sit down and start, you pick exactly what you want. Yeah.
You heard it for yourself. The artistic heritage of Zimbabwean art is safe in the hands of the Art Collective. That was this week's episode of iAfrica, where I had with you a mixed media artist and talking about the artists that are coming through, that are popping up throughout the country, as well as the podcaster, because we are in the tech generation, right? And then also we wrapped it up with your stylist, Mr. Rocker. See you next week. Bye for now. iAfrica searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdokwani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. iAfrica, celebrating the African story.